This prisoner does not have a problem with his eyes. Rather, he is beaten up like a pig's head every day. Today he has a black eye on his right. He returns to the dormitory and is beaten up again. The next day, his left eye is black. Basically, he gets beaten up everywhere he goes. The whole prison hates him because he used to be a prosecutor. He sentenced 70% of the inmates. And then one day, he suddenly became the boss of the prison. All the inmates bowed down to him. Every time he took a walk in the prison, he had a group of minions. They follow him voluntarily. The warden nodded and bowed to him. He offered to give him gifts. He hid the gifts in newspapers. All Italian brand name cigarettes. The prison became his home. Everywhere he went the guards would open the door for him. So how did he go from being a rookie to being the big man in prison? Let Kay tell you all about it. This is the most chaotic prison in Busan, Korea. It's filled with felons who have killed people. That's when a prison van pulls up. The new inmates get out of the car and stand in a row. The old prisoners immediately gathered around. They wanted to see if they knew anyone in the lineup. The third prisoner was James, number 3820. The prisoners immediately laughed. "Ah, prosecutor, what's wrong with you? Line up and move in." Another prisoner also came forward. "Do you remember me? I'll never forget you." James realized that he was in big trouble. James was placed in a cell. The rule here is that you have to wear slippers to enter. When James walked in, his fellow inmates were stunned. The prison boss, Brock, stood up. "It's been a long time. How did you end up here?" James didn't say anything. With his small eyes he could only stare at Brock. Brock grabbed his neck collar and dragged him inside. "Are you deaf or dumb? Why don't you speak?" James couldn't stand it anymore. "You got 20 years because of me, right? 3 years for theft and 17 years for murder." Brock nudged him in the head with his finger. "You have a good fucking memory, as expected of a prosecutor." James is not a coward. There's no need to hold a grudge. Let's just get along. Everyone laughed at that comment. "Okay, we'll get along with you." Brock took what was in his hand. This is how they fight in prison. A prisoner swung a small towel and suddenly covered James's mouth. 3 cellmates held him down. Brock beat him up and landed a few punches to his stomach. Brock started to fight back. A kick made Brock stumble and he almost fell down. "Damn, how dare you resist?" Now a few more people started ruthlessly beating James. Soon he fell to the ground. A few people stomped on him. At that moment, the white chicken reported, "Stop, the guards are here." Several people crouched on the ground, pretending to massage James. The guards asked why they were making so much noise. In fact, the guards already knew this was the basic process in prison. In order to loosen up the new arrivals, just about done, the guards left. James had a tough night. This prison is really strange. Inmates must practice jumping jacks every day and jump 666 times. Brock walked up to James. His head had swollen to 3 times the size of a pig's. His black eyes were especially gruesome. "What are you looking at, you bastard?" James looked at him with disdain. In return, he got another beating at noon. This time he didn't resist. He fell to the ground, elbows protecting his head and left leg up to protect his manhood. "Hit me however you want." He sentenced someone to 20 years. Can we not beat him harder? Only until they grew tired did they stop beating him. He barely made it through a few days. While he was working in the sewing room, James's sewing machine was tampered with again by someone. While working, the needle got stuck and punctured his hand severely. The guards rushed over to see. He was bleeding and rushed to the infirmary. In the afternoon, James went to the toilet. Suddenly he heard the TV. The speaker was attending the Far Eastern group's groundbreaking ceremony. He turned around and pissed all over the others. Now he was beaten up again, but he also understood. He was set up by the speaker, convicted of murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison. James decided to turn the tide against him. He wanted revenge, even if it was in prison. First, he must become the boss of the prison. The inmate who is always bullied decides to become the prison boss. He starts to think up a plan. At night, when everyone else is sleeping, he stays up to study the art of war. Finally, he got his chance. It was laundry day at the prison. The warden suddenly called everyone over. He asked them, "When you were in society, whose occupation was related to real estate?" Immediately, the brothers, Bo and Biff, raised their hands. Bo said, "I did renovation and laid floor tiles." The warden was not happy to hear that. "Go away you." Biff said, "I always helped the owners of various houses. I unclogged drains and toilets." Everyone laughed. The warden almost died out of anger. "These bunch of losers, get out of here." Dismissed. James heard something. When everyone had left, he offered to talk to the warden. "I have a few contacts in real estate litigation." It dawned on the warden. "Yes, you're a prosecutor. Why didn't I think of you? You're an expert in this field." James was invited to the office. Have you ever seen prison guards invite a prisoner to eat fried noodles? James took in the aroma, so the warden wanted to ask him questions. His family's house had a dispute with others. It was very difficult for him to sort out. When James heard, he said, "It's very simple. 1. Go to do a fair document. 2. Go to the parties concerned to take a statement. 3. Open a certificate of Party A and Party B. Once all that's done, you'll be golden and no one can take away your house." The warden was dumbfounded. "Ah, was it really that simple? My house is worth 26 million. James said, "No problem. I've handled even the most difficult cases. If I can't do it, I'll let you use my head as a urinal." The warden was convinced and laughed immediately. James asked, "Well, this bowl of noodles, can I eat it too?" "Eat, eat, eat. Eat as much as you like." After hearing this, the deputy next to him thought James was a god. Immediately, he also came over. "My family also has a difficult problem. Help me with a solution. I hit someone a few days ago. He wants me to pay 10 million. If I don't pay, he'll sue me. I'm a civil servant and I'm afraid I'll lose my job." A ferocious prison guard curries favor with a rookie inmate. Please advise him how to avoid paying for this incident. James sucked his teeth. "That's easy to do too. Let him produce a health report before the accident. If he can't get it, the most you can do is compensate him with $1 million. And that's it. The health report is not available to the general public. So that's how it is," the deputy thought. He solved both people's problems. At this point, James made a request. "But can you do me a favor?" It turns out that James wants to bring down Brock or he'll get beaten up every day. The warden and deputy heard that and thought, "What a piece of cake." They went there with a few prison guards. Brock was still dancing in the dormitory. The prison guards rushed in. 1312 solitary confinement. The warden snapped his fingers. The guards went up and held Brock. First, they had beaten him before talking and he was then escorted out like this. James was watching from the side. They took Brock into the small black room and soon James heard Brock's screams. He was directly beaten into a cripple and then spent the whole year in the hospital. He killed Brock with a knife. The story immediately spread in the prison. A rookie inmate became the star of the prison. There are always guards or inmates who come to him for help. Any dispute, any lawsuit, any problem, James will make it all go away. After all, he's been a prosecutor for so many years. He knew all the cases in and out. Even the warden often came to him for advice. The warden came to inspect the workshop. The warden came straight to James. "James, why are you still working?" James smiled. "Of course I have to do it. The case you mentioned last time, did you manage to solve it?" The warden smiled. "It went very well. When I raised the points you taught me." The opposing lawyer was shocked beyond belief. Not a word of rebuttal. The lawsuit went smoothly. "You saved me more than 50 million. James immediately nodded his head. "It's good that we won." The warden brought a stack of newspapers and praised James for his good work and left. "This prisoner is really good." Even the warden gave him cigarettes. James gave the newspaper to his second in command. Everyone knew there was something good in it. He lifted the paper. It was full of Italian-made Merlot cigarettes. The prisoners didn't even smoke them. They had never even seen them. And now we see more than 100 prisoners in the canteen smoking Italian cigarettes. It was a spectacular scene. No ordinary prison can have this kind of atmosphere. Everyone smoked like this, with treats like this once in a while as well as helping people solve all kinds of problems. The inmates were totally convinced by James and bowed down to him. James became the new boss of the prison. Every time he took a walk in the prison, he had a group of minions. They followed him everywhere he went in the prison. The guards had to open the door for him. Such a good cigarette, but James didn't smoke any of them. He was thinking about the big plan in his mind. Now that he is already in charge, how does he overturn his case? How can he have his revenge on the people outside the prison? In fact, his case was very wrongful. This was a bad incident. Far Eastern group wanted to develop a piece of land. Environmentalists and bird lovers blocked it. The Far Eastern group hired a group of thugs, posing as bird lovers. They went to beat up the police, so that public opinion would be reversed to make people think bird lovers are all violent people. As a result, a police officer was directly KO'd. A gangster who was caught was interrogated by James, who was a prosecutor at the time. He beat up the punk. As a result, the next day the punk was dead. James became a suspect. There was a Speaker of Parliament who told James to confess to the crime. Then he will be sentenced according to self-defense and serve no jail time at all. He never thought James would fall for it. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison. James must have his revenge. One day, a prisoner arrived at the prison. His name was Joe. He was a fraudster because of his good looks. Joe was a good scammer. Joe talked about migratory birds in the canteen. It was the same as what that bastard said before. James immediately realized Joe was related to his case. The prison boss was angry. He questioned Joe about his migratory bird migration case and Joe said nothing. James implored him to just tell the truth and he'll help him settle his case. Joe won't even spend a day in jail. He faced the temptation of fried chicken. So he confessed. He and the punk were both thugs. Joe was hired by the Speaker and the Far East group. James analyzed the whole case. He got Joe out of jail. Joe came out and did 3 important things. 1. Pretended to help the speaker get votes. He successfully got a photo with the speaker. 2. He relied on his face. He got the beautiful accountant of Far Eastern Group in a photograph that showed her transferring money to the speaker. 3. Impersonated a prosecutor, imitated the director's signature and successfully brought the case to court. James's side proposed a retrial of the case. On the day of the trial, the speaker was afraid. The speaker struck a deal with James's second-in-command and stabbed James. In the courtroom, James was late. The speaker thought he could win, but James came to court with injuries. During the argument, the speaker confessed. He said he threw away the punk's respirator. It turns out the punk had asthma. The speaker took his respirator and threw it into the Han River. That's why he died. With all the evidence, James's case was successfully overturned. The speaker was convicted of murder and sentenced to jail. James walked out of the prison. His best friend Joe met him at the door. They're about to embark on a new life. End of the film. This film is called A Violent Prosecutor. This issues question: do you think James is considered to be wise and brave? Comment 111 if you think so. Comment 222 if you think he is not. This story tells us, no matter where we are, knowledge is power. The more you know, the better you are in life. IQ determines everything. Even if you have to turn the odds against the wind, you have greater the chances when you have knowledge. This film is good. Kay recommends everyone go see the original film. Well, that's all for this issue. Remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye.